There you go. We're live on air.
On air. Very good. Cool. Well, should we start by introducing ourselves?
Yeah, go on then.
Go on then. That was a go on then you first.
Tim Casson. Is that how you say it? Casson?
Casson, yeah.
Not Casson.
No, I'm not on. Just Casson.
The emphasis on the Cass.
Cass. And I guess I'm a dance maker. I am a performer, and I am an educator. And I guess the catch-all term is dance artist.
He does cool dance stuff, basically.
Basically, yes. And
you're a choreographer, aren't you? That sounds posh.
Yeah, I'm a choreographer.
It's
choreographer, but that's fine.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think so. I guess the relevant information for this particular thing today is that I often work with the public. Maybe that's not relevant information, but the other thing
it's relevant. That's kind of a core part of what you do, isn't it?
True, yeah. So,
and I guess we can talk about the dance we made, right?
We could talk about the dance we made
briefly.
For once, I didn't write that on my notepad, but we can talk about it. And I also work with digital in various ways, and I can talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, cool.
You are Seb.
I'm Seb Lee-Delisle, and I'm a digital artist. I work with computers, and I make really cool. Well, I think they're cool. I probably shouldn't introduce myself as cool. It's for other people to decide. Anyway, I make these big, large-scale projects with lasers and big projectors, and I'm just trying to figure out which camera this is on. Oh, there you go. I think I had it so that it was just on you all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Which probably some people would like, but now it should automatically. What am I even saying? Yeah, I make these big installations with computers. So
I think I'm really cool, right?
You think I'm cool?
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So everything I do is with code, right? I program all my projects. I don't really do graphics with software. I just make the computer do all the graphics. So that's kind of cool. We should talk about how we met, right?
Yes, we met at the Southeast Dances Dance Hack as part of Brighton Digital Festival in the year 2014.
So that was last year, right?
Last year.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago, was it? Oh, mind you, it's like a whole year now.
It's nearly a whole year.
What's happened this year? It's crazy. But no, we immediately hit it off. We both, I think it was because we've both done some interactive stuff, right? And a lot of my experiments that, I do a lot of talks at conferences, and a lot of experiments I do at those talks involve large scale interactions where the entire audience can interact with one of my, one of my bits of code, like with glow sticks or motion detection or sound. I've done quite a few things like that, and I know that Tim, you're interested in that stuff too. So we sort of gravitated towards each other, right?
Yeah, I think we kind of hit it off in a way because I think technology can be a bit scary to some people, and also dance can be a bit scary too. And I think we both had a passion about trying to make both of these things unscary.
Yeah.
Which isn't a word, but it is now, because I just said
it's totally a word. Unscary is totally a word. I might just move my camera up so you can't see so much of the mess.
It's work. It's not mess. It's
yeah, work in progress.
I should, so some context, I guess we have been asked by Southeast Dance to talk about, or the provocation. We've been provoked, and this is our response.
Very provocative.
It has been, does the relationship between dance and digital stretch further than novelty?
Oh.
What we've been asked.
Yeah. Does it stretch beyond novelty? Well, I don't know.
I would say yes. I think digital is so I was talking to someone actually this morning about it, about kind of how I see dance and digital, and also when it's a good combination. And I think there's something that I always check in with myself about, and it's that for me, digital is used to enhance or distribute dance. But it always has to enhance it. Rather than, I don't know, if you're going to use digital, for me, it has to be there to do something that wouldn't be possible without it. And that's whether enhancing the actual physical performance with the body, or something to do with the narrative and making a lovely story even lovelier, or the kind of characters as well. And distribution, I think it's a really exciting way to distribute dance. So in a way that using YouTube as a platform to kind of put some dance up there would be really exciting, because it means that you don't have to buy a ticket, it's free and anyone can access it. And I think theatres, as much as they're lovely, can sometimes be a bit scary in terms of places, and you go and pay your ticket and you don't know what you're going to get, and you have to sit in the dark and you can't.
Sure. So you're talking about digital as a as a medium to distribute as well, because obviously I was kind of focusing on the more immediate integration of like digital stuff with dance as well. But I just want to say with the provocation, I'm a little bit provoked, right? Because I guess and it's not necessarily to do with dance, but it's to do with my projects, which are very accessible and fun, and they try to be joyful, and I often feel a bit insecure because there's so much about digital art that has to be challenging or somehow deep and meaningful. And when really, of course, all my projects are just like, wow, it's brilliant. You just wave your hands around and this cool stuff happens. And I think that is profound. And I think that is, it can be very intense and deep. But obviously, it's not like questioning anything like real, some serious digital art, some very good digital art can do. And so I guess immediately it puts me on a slight sort of defensive attitude. It's sort of like, well, if it is just novelty, is that necessarily a bad thing? And I'm not sure that it is. I mean, if it's...
I think people kind of, I don't know, I think in terms of art and being an artist, there is a pressure to create something serious and meaningful. And I think sometimes that pressure can be the death of joy if we all take it seriously. And I like that you use the word joy, because that's a word I use quite a lot in terms of also what I do. And I think there's nothing wrong with kind of having light things. And I suppose in this day and age, and with so much kind of darkness in the world, it's great to have some light to kind of add some change and to add a bit of light relief. So actually novelty is great. And sometimes novelty is what sticks in your head. If you think of novelty pop songs and things, they will never leave your brain. They will be there forever.
I do also feel like there's a certain pressure to be innovative. So I suppose novelty means two things, doesn't it? I guess in some ways it means sort of faddy, right? And in the other definition, it sort of means something that is genuinely sort of new. And I think in digital, and probably in dance as well, I don't know, but there is a sort of pressure to create something new. And of course, the truth about digital art is that pretty much everything's already been done anyway, right? So you could sort of...
With dance as well. Everything is derivative of something else. And I think actually the newness and the innovation is found in the different combinations of things, which is why I think a lot of choreographers maybe turn to digital to kind of go, okay, what can we do that's new, and can we find something new? But very often, I think in terms of when choreographers use digital in performance, it might be with projection or some, I don't know, projection mapping or various different kinds of things, and it can feel a little bit like the Emperor's New Clothes. It feels like it's just there because it's cool, and I feel like it doesn't necessarily always add things to the performance. And I think that's just something very, very careful, because then I think you can almost do both things a disservice if you're not really, if it's not there for the right reasons.
So what would the right reasons be?
That's a tricky question. I think actually, as much as I'm kind of saying no to just because it's cool, actually sometimes that's a really great reason.
Sometimes it is cool.
Sometimes it is cool. It's there because it's cool. But I think it could be something to do with I mean, there are some companies that I can think of. One of them is a theatre company called 1927, who just had a show called Golem, and they used kind of projection and digital technologies in a really amazing way to create a world. So their whole set pretty much was projected, and it was incredibly clever, and it allowed them to, I think if they were to physically fabricate that set, it would have cost them thousands and thousands of pounds, but it allowed them to essentially do the impossible. And there's a couple of French companies I've seen recently that have kind of had whole projected worlds that the performers kind of existed in. And so really, I think projection is and digital, I guess, is used in the right way for me when you are trying to do something that would otherwise be impossible.
Yeah, there was a feature about that Golem show on Click, BBC Click. So
Okay.
that was quite interesting, and how they made it. And that's an interesting project because all of the computer stuff in that was all completely predetermined and totally linear, right? So there was nothing reacting at all. And that sort of reminds me of, it's not really a problem at all because, I saw one bit where they were writing on the wall with like a paintbrush or something, and what they were painting would appear on the wall. But that was all totally predetermined, and they sort of almost had to follow what was about to appear on the wall. They had to sort of preempt it and get exactly the right timing, exactly the right position. And I think that's really cool. And it reminded me a bit of one of the very first digital dance projects that I became aware of, which was made by my friend James Patterson and Amit Pitaru, Press Tube in America. And they're sort of, I suppose they're a bit like me. They work in lots of digital art sort of forms, but they've been experimenting with dance for years and years and years. And this project is part of a series called Smash Up, I think. And I first saw it over 10 years ago. And this was a top-down projection. James is brilliant at making these little animations, these little drawings that just sort of evolve and grow. It's very organic. Sort of line drawings, quite cartoony but abstract, that sort of just evolve and grow. And he programs them and puts them all together so they sort of become this big sort of flowering plant. And what he did was a mixture of sort of predetermined and live rendered. So he'd have these positions where the dancers would be at a particular time, and he'd draw an outline on the ground at that time, at that point in time, and then the dancer would come away from that and the outline would turn into this flowing, growing sort of vine thing that was moving around. And then the next position the dancer would be in at a particular time, it would stop there and it would do another outline, and the dancer would just stay still for a moment and then carry on. Of course, all that generated vine stuff was real-time programmed, but it was kind of random. But of course, the actual integration with the dancers was completely predetermined and fixed, sort of a bit like the Golem stuff. And then, of course, on the other side, which is the side that I'm probably a bit more interested in, but just because of the nature of my work, is the stuff that actually responds to dancers.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, I think with that first type that we've been describing, there's always a predetermined element, whether or not it's the performer that's predetermined, the kind of human element, or the technological element that's predetermined. And I think with those things, therein lies kind of choreography and choreographic potential, because the dancer has to be at a certain point in space at a certain time. And I think that is a real challenge. I know when we were making Fiend, which is a digital work that we kind of showed at the digital festival last year, we basically use visual live looping, and we are able to, the result is that there is able to be projected a live version of myself, the performer, and a version from 10 seconds ago or 2 minutes ago, and we're able to have a duet with myself, which sounds like the most narcissistic thing ever, but it was there kind of for that reason, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of I had to.
It's cheaper as well if you don't need to get any other dancers.
Yeah, that's true. That's it. We'll just use this technology, and we'd have to employ.
Fine.
We would multiply them. But that said, it was a pain sometimes, because I had to make sure that I was really in the right place at the right time. And if you were like a step out, then those two projected versions maybe would occupy the same space at the same time. That wouldn't look great.
That was kind of, I was thinking about the predetermined stuff like the press tube thing and the Golem stuff. And then I was thinking about the stuff that reacted to the dancer in real time. And I suppose I'm thinking then about the Chunkymove project I saw ages ago called Glow. And I think you saw one as well. But I don't know if the one you saw is the same, in that it was all done by sort of image recognition of the camera and actually responding to what the dancer was doing in real time.
Yeah, as I understand it, Glow is the precursor to Mortal Engine, which is the piece that I'd seen that came after. And I guess what was exciting about that is that they were using infrared cameras to track the dancers' movements in real time, and that would have an impact on the projection. And I think one of the things that really struck me was there was no lighting, or there was very little stage lighting in that show, and all of the lighting was top down projection. And something that sounds a bit odd to say, but it became possible through that show and using the technology to not just project light, but to project darkness. So there were whole sections of the show where you had just the body, and the whole stage was illuminated apart from where the body was. And then you end up with this really quite haunting, shadowy creature, or massive bodies that were all in darkness, so some sort of organic, shadowy lump. And that was really exciting to see and to think, actually, maybe less about the movement itself in dance, but in terms of scenography and lighting design, what are the possibilities with projection rather than lighting things? So that for me was one of the things that really stuck with me about that show and made me really excited.
Yeah, and I think also the Marshmallow Feast, Laser Feast Fest. Marshmallow Laser Fest, I think it is. Emma Acton and a couple of other guys that I sort of know a little bit. And we saw their production last year, didn't we, at the festival? And that was similar in that they had, albeit much more sophisticated, well, they were using Kinects, right? So they had a whole array of Kinects to map the dancers in real time, like in full 3D. I mean, it's kind of crazy engineering. And so they were doing their sort of overall concept was similar to the Chunkymove work in that they were projecting visuals that were responding directly to what the dancer was doing. But I think what you and I have done some experiments already, which are sort of like a different way from the things that we've spoken about already, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been looking at, so I have a project called The Dance We Made, and in The Dance We Made, I will go to a public space and I will collect dance moves from members of the public. Most of the time, those people don't know anything about dance or claim to know nothing about dance. Everybody knows something. And after that kind of collection of maybe an hour and a half, I will have collected enough moves to make a dance, which I will then stick together in the order in which they were collected and perform that dance in that place. So I'm quite interested in putting the public in control of a dance performance, because it sounds very lazy in one respect, but actually I find it a challenge rather for a choreographer to be told what to do. And it's like being given lots of puzzle pieces and you don't quite know how they fit together. So kind of based on that and informed a lot by kind of your work, I guess we were looking at how we can in real time have an audience or have people in control of dancers. And that felt really exciting. It felt quite new and maybe innovative and maybe a little bit novelty. I don't know if you're allowed to use that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think some people have looked at this kind of work before, haven't they? I think there's been, perhaps you know more than that. I remember you mentioned one or two projects that I think I looked at the time. Do they come to mind right now?
And I think there are things like some of Siobhan Davies's work. I can't remember. I think there's a work called Manual, where an audience member has the task of describing a dancer off the floor. So the dancer is laying on the floor and the audience member has to tell them what body part to move when, with the view to hopefully making them stand. And that's, though that doesn't use technology, that is one example of work where the dancer's movements are very much controlled via suggestions from the audience in real time. So that's quite...
Yeah, and I think, you know, we've spent a week or so together experimenting with things, and I don't exactly know why we're doing it, or, you know, it's sort of like you were saying, it's like, is it novelty, is it not novelty? But there were some things that we did that I don't really understand the point of, but somehow seem really intriguing and interesting. And I think that's like all of my work, you know, I don't really know why I do it, except that I'm just sort of drawn to it somehow. And then when you try it, it's sort of like, well, that's really weird and interesting. And so then you do it some more and it gets more interesting. And it is just sort of pointless experiments, isn't it? Like, do you remember, well, what we were doing, you know, with our time in Kent? We were, where was it?
We were in Hextable, South East
Kent, was it?
Yeah, I think that's in Kent.
This is in the middle of nowhere. That was good. No distractions. And we just set up this little demo, this little prototype where we gave the dancers headsets, like little earpieces, and we'd give them commands through the headset that myself or Tim or someone else was controlling. So we almost had like a joystick. We could make the dancers go left or right or backwards or forwards. And, you know, I don't think we really knew what that would be like, right? But it was somehow really strange and
quite good fun. It's like having a remote control dancer. But the weird thing, I guess the feeling that I didn't expect to feel, I kind of expected that it might be fun, and it was quite good. The thing that shocked me, I guess, was that the movement that came out was quite sort of robotic, or we had them doing line dancing at one point, and them doing like 70s disco at another point, which is quite absurd. But as they were moving around the space, they almost seem a little bit like facially lifeless, and it was a little bit odd. The feeling I didn't expect to feel was this weird responsibility that you kind of remember that it is a human being, but they are like quite instantly under your control, and it was a bit awkward. Kind of sensation. But I think
like they were the Borg.
We
were just
weird singular consciousness. Or like it was they were all
but to see them all moving in time at sort of random moments was also quite pleasing, you know.
There's a synchronicity that because it was so kind of,
and it's sort of mysterious as well. It was sort of like, well, how do they all know to go at the same time, you know? So it was quite strange, wasn't it?
It was weird. I guess there was one thing there's something that really draws me to your work actually is that one of the issues with technology, I think, socially, is that they are once a mobile phone, for example, is once a device that can connect you to anywhere in the world and anyone else in the world, but it can be a really isolating thing. You might be sat next to your, I don't know, partner or friend, and they'll be texting away and completely ignoring you, and there's no there are things that can really take us out of experiences and experiencing life. And something that I really love about your work is that very often you're using these devices that can be used for isolation to create shared experiences.
I certainly think that there's a lot of, you know, we've had these very powerful computers in our pockets for quite a long time, haven't we? And I think, you know, when you start to think about how you can connect those together, you know, I mean, there's like a world of possibilities, really. And I think that in a way, this has happened quite quickly, right? It's only been in the last, I don't know, when did the iPhone come out? 2007, I think.
Something like that.
You know, so it's, and it was quite a while before it became any good, right? So in less than 10 years, we've now all got very good computers in our pocket. And, you know, but I don't think anyone, or a few people have started to experiment with how to link them together in interesting ways and do weird things with them. But it feels like it's a very rich seam to be mined.
I think I'm just mindful that, I mean, to go back to the question, I suppose I'm just a bit mindful that it is for the right reasons, because I think sometimes, I don't know, because it's cool can be a really good reason, but I think if we can find a way that makes it, I don't know, tell a story better or make somebody feel something. I think that's one of my issues actually with a lot of digital performance that I've seen, is that sometimes it can make you feel a little bit cold. And the fact that even in our tests, when we were testing out our kind of project together, the fact that we were having feelings, and the people who came in and tested it out with us were laughing and they were smiling and they were also having feelings. Whereas I think some dance that I've seen can just be a combination of dancing and a screensaver over the time. And to be really critical, but and I think it's really you was kind of saying, when is it used best with the technology and performance? And I think it's if it can make you feel something, because it has the potential to make you feel something. So just the question always to me is why am I using this technology, and is it going to make me feel anything better?
Yeah, I think this is really tough though, right? Because you can be a bit snooty if you want, right? It's quite fun. You can be like, oh, it's just dance and a screensaver, right? And that's a really good soundbite. But that could still be good, right? Couldn't it? It could be a good dance and a good screensaver, like a big projection, and it could feel really nice. I think probably when you don't like it or when it doesn't work, it's probably because the dancing isn't very good and the screensaver isn't very good, and
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's
and in that way, it's just the same as that you can get like a good like contemporary dance piece, and you can get a bad one. And so I don't think it's necessarily a product of it being digital. It's just
sure. That's true. I guess it's. I suppose the dream is that all of the elements work well together and are all of a good quality.
Yeah, and I think there's also that balance as well. And sometimes it is going to be more dance oriented, and sometimes it is going to be more digital. You know, in the same way that you get Kraftwerk, which are a digital band with no stage presence and very little emotion, and then you get like I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some really emotional acoustic band now. I can't think of any. Can you think of any? Anyway, you could get like a really acoustic, you know, analog sort of band. They're very soulful and heartfelt with like no technology, you know.
Yeah.
And then you get the sliding scale in between. And I think just because it is digital and just because it doesn't necessarily have a lot of just because it is a little bit cold, you know, as long as that's sort of deliberate and authentic, I'm not sure that's necessarily a problem. Maybe it's a problem if that's not what they meant to do at all. They were trying to do something really heartfelt.
Yeah, I think that it's it is a bit of a problem sometimes that technology can leave you a little bit cold, but that's true to say it's not always the case, and that might be what people want to do, and I think they might want to create something with that feeling of leaving you a little bit cold, because I think that is some people's experiences of technology. And I know with Fiend, one of the ideas was that it was about having a relationship with something that wasn't there, something virtual. So I was talking about these multiple performers, and they can't see each other. So my character is trying to touch and trying to connect with this other alternative me, but it's completely impossible because it's a projection and it's not really there. And so there was a kind of inbuilt coldness with that. So I guess it's if it serves.
But you were exploring that, right? And presumably you were contrasting it with the live performance of you there as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, but then hopefully the hope, I suppose, was that the audience would relate to that character and kind of go, oh, I know what that's like, because I guess it came from when we have relationships with people online, using, I don't know, Facebook or social media, and there might be people that we've only ever met online, and we haven't met them in real life, and it isn't a real physical relationship, and there is no touch, but so you can't, that kind of side is impossible. But
I think more and more, particularly with newer generations, you know, those relationships are just as real as a real physical relationship. You know, someone you could be chatting with halfway across the road. Sure, you're talking differently, but the connection between humans is still completely valid and real.
I think I remember really clearly realizing that, because I was stood in a queue. I think an Apple store had just opened in London, and I was in a queue behind some very excited, geeky teenage boys, and a guy walked past them, and one of them said hi to him, just in passing, and his mate said, "Oh, who's that? How do you know him?" And so, "Oh yeah, I've met him online, but we've never met in real life before." And I kind of thought, wow, this is a normal way to interact. This is a normal way to be. And that's, so I think these relationships are changing. But I suppose the maybe slight awkwardness that happens with dance, or the tension, is that dance is often and mostly a very, very physical thing. And you do have genuine touch. And it's quite interesting, maybe if digital disrupts that can be a really exciting thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you have the possibility to have two performers in neither of whom could be in the same space but performing together, and that could be an exciting thing.
Yeah, that's really hard though, right? Because it's like, do you remember in 1986 they wanted to have like in Live Aid? Was that 1985? One of them. They wanted to have a duet with someone in America and someone in the UK, right? And they wanted to play all together. And of course, they couldn't fix the latency problem, right? Because by the time the performer in England heard what was happening in America, like that, you could play in time with what you were hearing from America, but then America would hear that even later. Right? So I don't know, that they haven't quite fixed that problem, have they?
I remember seeing a dance piece in 2003. It was one of the first pieces I'd ever seen, and it was, I think, Siobhan, the Jayasingh company, who's a South Asian choreographer, and they had a live link up, which was really exciting at the time, with someone on a rooftop in Mumbai, and and it actually worked surprisingly well. But I think because of the latency issue, there just was no potential to have any kind of synchronicity or any kind
Well, but there is if you do it one way, right? So
yeah,
if you want some guy on a rooftop in Mumbai to be part of your show in London, then you could do that, right? Because you could just play him the music a bit early. And so as long as he was in time with the music.
oh, but then calculated latency, is that we're going into algebra and stuff?
That's not a problem. We can handle it. Cool. I guess we've been talking a while. We should probably wrap it up, right?
My phone has died, which gave me a stopwatch, so I don't know, but I think we've been chatting for a little while.
Yeah,
so,
it's probably been a while.
But yeah, I suppose in response to the question of does the relationship between dance and digital stretch further than novelty, we've been talking for like half an hour, so I would say no. I guess it can be novelty and it can be other.
So you're saying yes, it can stretch.
Sorry, yeah, it can stretch beyond novelty.
But it can also be novelty.
Include novelty, yeah.
And that's not necessarily something to be derided.
Exactly. Because we're both joy meisters.
Yeah, bit of novelty, why not?
Cool.
Good chatting, Tim. I hope it's been interesting to everyone.
Yes. And you should check out Seb's work online. Seb, what's your website?
Seb.ly. That's it.
And Seb Lee.
Tim Casson. Casson
and friends.com.
CassonandFriends.com.
And yeah, check it all out.
Maybe we should put some links in as well. We could put some links in of stuff we've talked about.
Yeah, that would be useful. Let's do that.
Great.
Cool.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, guys.